Hello, thank you so much for joining us on our next episode of the Business Podcast. No, the Business Casual Podcast. Let's start all over. Hello, thanks so much for joining us on Business Casual Podcast. We are here with Dawn Danner from the Nest Salon and Boutique in Parker. Is it just in Parker?
Yes, we are now just in Parker.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I was looking at a little bit of on your website. So, did you have another location? Where was that other location to start with?
Yes, actually, this is our third home. We started very small in 100 square feet in a salon suite, actually.
Okay.
And then we had our second location, which was Dry Creek, Alton area. And 2 weeks before we were getting ready to open that location is when I found the Parker location.
Okay.
And that it was available.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just jumped on it, even though it was not the perfect time to do it. But
Right.
sometimes that happens,
Right.
right? And you just have to do it.
So you moved into that location in Parker. What year then?
November 21. November 21.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I was looking that you've been a nail tech
Yes.
for
Mhm.
25 years. Is that correct?
We'll use that number, but it's a few more. I don't want to age myself too much
Right.
there. But yes, so I have done that for a very long time.
Okay. And that was the main focus of the Nest originally. Is that correct?
So during the pandemic,
Yeah.
I worked in a previous salon where there were 40 of us,
Mm-hmm.
and the pandemic changed everything. And we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't all work at the same time. We had to work in shifts and all
Yeah.
of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved into a salon suite, my girlfriend and I,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to do a double suite, and the rent there was very expensive. And so we offset with a small boutique
Yeah.
in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of started that way. I had always wanted to own a boutique. That was like my dream.
Right.
And I thought, well, I can have a little bit of my dream with offsetting rent costs. And it became, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I will always, I think, be a nail tech in some aspect.
Right.
Because it's the relationship
Yeah.
side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, if I could just hold hands with them and
Right.
be in a relationship, that would be great. But that's a way to, have those relationships with
Okay.
people.
What I love about when I was reading that was you were talking about incorporating the boutique as
Mhm.
another revenue source kind of during this
Yeah.
struggle,
Yeah.
which really made me think again as entrepreneurs, the importance of assessing a situation and shifting in the market. What am I going to do?
Yes.
How am I going to pivot and survive?
100%. And we are even doing that now again at Nest Parker. I heard probably one of the most influential lines somebody said was, "What got you there may not keep you there." And so always being willing to reassess and figure
Yeah.
out, is this still working?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I need to change? Or how has it evolved?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's taken on this other piece that you didn't anticipate.
Right, right. So tell me what is working right now at the Nest in Parker? Are you focusing more on the boutique or are people really aware of a salon? Because honestly, when you came in, I know it was the Nest Salon and Boutique, but I
Right.
didn't think
See
about the
that
salon.
piece. Right. So the boutique side is working, and oh my gosh, I love that piece.
Mm-hmm.
The salon side is working too. We have just figuring out the flow and
Yeah.
how things are going to work and what will work long term. And oh wow, this feels a little weird, so let's flip flop and adjust this. And we've done that, which makes a little bit more room for hairstylists. So
Okay.
because we only had two
Okay.
before.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have room for an additional stylist. And,
Okay.
and it's just a constant change of
Right.
things. It's always, well, I think it's almost like a person, right? It's always growing and changing
Yeah.
and aging and maturing or growing out of something.
Yeah. I think when you're also creating your own paycheck, you are always assessing what am I going to do?
Right.
It's
Right.
not, we don't just have the luxury of going to work and not that people don't stress out about their job, but it's a different kind of a stress in a job than as an entrepreneur.
100%.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I have never been, I've only been an entrepreneur since day one.
Okay.
I've worked for other companies as a W-2 employee, but like helping a friend who owned, Sir chocolate business, and I would do things for her
Okay.
or as a teenager. But as an adult, once I started working, I have never been a W-2 employee until a year ago when I started actually taking a
Right.
paycheck. I'm my
That
own
you're
W-2.
creating.
Right. But
Yes.
it's so for
It's
me,
just in you.
it's
Yeah.
just who I am.
Yeah.
But talking with other people who are considering becoming an entrepreneur, or you realize there is such a different mindset
Yeah.
and stressors too. We
Yes.
all have stressors, but different stressors.
There is. Dwayne and I have been married for quite some time. Again, not to age myself, but it's
Right.
been a while. And he has always had an entrepreneurial mind. And I was not that way to
Yes.
start off. I was like, no, I think we need the security of this and this. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's never going to work for me.
Right.
So I've had to learn to adjust to that and then really seeing the benefits and the struggles, but realizing how much I do enjoy this so much more than clocking in and out somewhere for me, and it's
Yes.
not for everyone,
Yes.
so but I had to grow into that,
Right.
to loving it,
Right.
So tell me about you're married.
Yep.
Is your husband work with you?
He does.
Okay.
Yes. So my husband, not entrepreneurial mind.
Right.
And so it is sometimes a struggle for us to find that balance because he likes the structure and the stability of, being an employee.
Yeah.
He likes being, we call it a zoo monkey versus a wild monkey. I'm the wild monkey. He's the zoo monkey. But yes, he is with me now. He had a Polish pottery import business with his brother, and but he was more like the employee. He did not do the day-to-day
Right.
this stuff.
Yeah.
But we work well together.
Yeah. So he's there with you now full time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, you have how many children?
So I have 4 children.
Okay.
I have what we affectionately call the bigs and the littles. So I had a marriage. I can now say we're friends, which is lovely.
Yes.
Took a long time to get there, and it took some tough things to get there. But and so I had 2 older children from my first marriage, and then Bill and I have 2 children together.
Okay. Okay. And how old, what's their age range?
Wide, 28, and Tristan passed away when he was 24, and then Liam is 11 and Eleanor is 9.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So if you're okay, let's revisit. Let's talk a little bit about Tristan and your vision about what happened. I read your story on the About Us, and it's incredible. One thing that really touched me was you talking about being able to hear other people laughing in the store and really being able to join into their joy, even though you were kind of struggling.
Oh,
So
big
there was a
struggle.
lot that's happened here recently. So just
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I love the opportunity to talk about him because sometimes when you lose a child, you also feel like you lose the opportunity to talk about them,
Yeah.
especially comfortably.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Tristan, he was my heart child. He felt everything. So big, right? All the things. And as beautiful of a quality is, that's hard sometimes for some kids because they just don't know how to sort
Yeah.
all of that, right? And
Yeah.
the feelings get big, the emotions are big. And looking back, he was always like that.
Yeah.
He began to struggle with sometimes impulsive choices, and addiction became part of his story, as it is with so many people. And that was a tough road
Yeah.
for families,
Yeah.
for all sorts of things. And in 2020, August of 2020, he had a fentanyl overdose, and of course set all of our world
Yeah. Yeah.
upside down.
So you're not only dealing with a pandemic and just business as life, and
Right.
now losing your son is
Right.
compounded.
Right.
How did you process that? I mean, what did you do? I mean, I know like you said, you take comfort in the nest, but how do you feel like you managed that, and as a family that you managed that?
I wish I could tell you that I had a really good strategy around that. Sometimes it is literally fielding bullets,
Yeah.
but we do it as best as we can.
Yeah.
I think that I threw myself into something productive. Right? Some people think that that is not grieving. And what I have learned about grief is we don't know anything
Yeah.
about grief that applies to everybody, right? You know, sometimes you'll hear, "Oh, I would never do that." Well,
Yeah. You don't know.
you don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
right? And for me, busyness
Yeah.
was my expression of, it was my coping mechanism. And the nest provided, a space for me to be busy.
Yeah.
And it uniquely provides me a space that I can speak openly about the struggles of addiction and parenting a child with addiction, because that is an even more complicated thing than just traditional parenting,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So,
And I think managing that with the siblings, right? At what point do you take the child that needs your attention, right? And then not overlook your other children. I can only speak to that for myself. I mean, we've got 4 children as well, from 28 to, I think they're turning 24 here. So it's all really close to in age. And our second son has been dealing with addiction probably for the last 10 years, and on and off, just in the house, tried rehab, tried everything. And then finally, we've had to ask him we had to kick him out of the house. I mean, because now he was affecting the other 2 girls. And we're like, you've got younger siblings. I cannot have this behavior around him. And we tried several times bringing him back. And then, I mean, just so many things we had tried over the last 10 years. And he has just chosen a life that is on the streets, and more and more he's isolating himself from his family, which is frustrating because
maddening.
it is, and this time of the year is super hard for us, I think as a family. We're thinking, where is he? Is he safe? Is he warm? And then with the rise of fentanyl that is happening, it is very unnerving. So tell me a little bit how your son, how long had he struggled with addiction?
He began to dabble in high school with, I think what some people like to say is casual drug use, marijuana and things like that. I've now talked to some of his adult friends and have learned that I think it was a little more than I even realized. They dabbled in other things.
Yeah.
But we thought then that it was just marijuana, which of course we didn't like.
Right.
I actually even at one point called the high school and turned him in
Yeah.
for having marijuana, hoping that that would be the thing
Right.
that maybe you're always looking for the thing,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just got increasingly more complicated and deeper. And, you know, I suppose there are people who can have casual marijuana use and never, ever try something else.
Mm-hmm.
But he was not that kid,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
He wasn't that kid.
Mm-hmm.
So just before he passed away, he had committed to going to rehab and kept telling us that, you know, there was a problem with the paperwork, and that was why. But when he died and I got into his email, it was there. And so he wasn't ready.
Yeah. And that's what's really hard. I think, you know, there was again something that you had said that I really appreciated. You said that you had a vision. You were loving who you wanted Tristan to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then you started realizing, I'm going to love everyone right where they are.
Yeah. So I received so many beautiful emails from complete strangers after he passed away, which I will cherish those for the rest of my life because I learned these stories. I mean, I knew his heart and who he
Yes.
was and as a mom, right? But as a mom, I assume you can relate to this. We have these hopes and dreams and aspirations for our children. And I was so focused on who I knew he could be that I absolutely missed sometimes who he was.
Yeah.
Because it was the addiction, it was the using, it was all of the trouble that comes along with that, right?
Yeah.
Like the lying and the this.
Yeah.
And I had to work long and hard to forgive myself for missing that. And sometimes I think, would things have been different if maybe I were not so focused on the other things, right?
Yeah.
And so I made a decision that I would always try to see people for who they are, right? And I'm not saying negating the
Right.
other things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because like your decision to have to ask your son to leave the house
Yes.
is 100% the right decision for your other children
Right.
and right. But I imagine that your son, even in his addiction, even in his choice, even living on the street, there are pieces of him that are still him and beautiful and qualities that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I told myself that I would always look at people and try to see them for who they are and let them know. And I end we do Facebook Lives with the same thing. I love you.
Yeah.
Jesus loves you just as you are. You're good enough just as you are today, right? For grace, for love, for that does not mean not with boundaries.
Of course.
But
Right.
I see you. And I wish that I could have seen
Yeah.
some of those things a little more.
That's it's incredible that you would say that. I think that I think it's normal as a parent.
Oh,
You're
sure.
looking at the potential of your children
Right.
and frustrated that maybe they're not seeing their potential,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think that it's so normal for us to feel like that. But when I read that, I thought it really did remind me. We had Alex, as he's been out on the street, like I said, he has been back home several times. He's been back and forth, and just has continued to choose. Like you
Right.
said, he just has not been ready.
Right.
And he would leave knowing, like, we'd say, you just can't stay here if this is the choice that you're going to make. And he's like, I get that. And so he would go back out on the streets. Well, over the years, we've been able to be in contact with him almost every month.
Right.
This past year, he's really pulled away, just really. And we're like, desperate. I don't know if he's alive or dead, and calling the police and trying to file missing persons reports. And his sister has such a heart. His younger sister, she will create essential packs and go out and just, give them socks and toothbrushes, just anybody, and then trying to find him. Well, we saw him a little bit. He was able to get in contact around the holidays, which is not a surprise for an addict to find that time to say, this is the time that I'll connect. I'll probably get some money, some gifts, and all of that. And I don't, I want to believe that he just wanted to connect, but I also am realizing that that's probably not fully the case. But I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to go see our son.
100%.
And when I did, I thought, gosh, even after all this time, like you said, I thought, oh, he's still there.
Yeah. Oh, you bet.
He is still there.
Yeah.
And it gave me a sense of accepting this is just where you are. Right. And I just have to love you in this space. So when I read that, it really resonated with me. I don't have to like your behavior.
Absolutely not.
I don't like the way, whatever that is. And I will do anything I can to help you when you're ready, but I can't force you to be ready. No. And so I have to love you where you are. Yep. And that is a challenge sometimes,
To stop and say, I'm going to see you in this moment and love you, right? Like you're that 2-year-old little boy. Yeah. You're that 6-year-old with the cowboy hat on. Whatever it is, I see you and I love you right now, right here. And I would do anything for you within this boundary. And I applaud you because some would say that losing a child is the hardest thing to ever experience. And while I agree with that statement, slowly losing a child and maintaining healthy boundaries for your other children.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to keep them safe while nursing your own terror and grief is painfully hard.
It is very hard. And I think that, like we've talked about, even just having conversations, it was, I don't know how, did it take you a while to be able to have a conversation about Tristan, or did you feel like I'm comfortable having this conversation?
It actually was a decision I made the day after he died. When I was trying to decide how to share about his death. We had to share immediately because he was at a friend's house when he passed away.
Okay.
And so, of course, that spread very fast.
Right.
So we had to put something up right away that we had lost him. But, of course, people, will always have questions.
Yeah.
I think that's a standard response. Like, well, what happened?
Right.
And I remember sitting there thinking, what do I say? And I had a choice. And it was, I could ask for privacy at our difficult time, or I could be honest and authentic. And it was a hard choice because I assume that you have felt shame that you don't own around these sorts of things. It is so hard to say, my son is an addict. My son is on the street. My son makes choices every day that I wish he wouldn't. You feel maybe you failed, right? And I just decided I going to hold nothing
Mm.
back.
Mm.
And it was such a relief
Yeah.
to not hold that.
Yeah.
Because it is our story.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of families' story.
And I think that that's why it has to be talked about, because I agree with you. And I know we talked a little bit before we started going on here, but I had held it so close as this shame
Yes.
of, and of course, I mean, I don't, I'm sure you did too, but I go back and I'm like, okay, did I do this, or what did I introduce, or what,
Every day.
everything that you could, should I, this course correction, all of this. And then finally, when I just said, I can't hide this anymore.
No.
This is a part of our story.
Yes.
And I think that, like you talked about, living in an affluent place, I think
Yeah.
even brings another level of maybe self-induced shame.
Yes.
What do you think? I mean, I feel like I don't necessarily feel that from people around me, but I don't know fully what their thoughts are.
I think, of course, we are our own worst,
Yeah.
right? Of course. But I would absolutely say that within sometimes our communities, we work so hard to provide the best community.
Yeah.
We choose this community because this school. So we are thinking that we are navigating these waters with all of the best intentions, right?
Yeah.
And you provide these things, and if you do these things, then things will be okay. And if you read comments in the comment section, which I would encourage you to never do, people will misinformed say, well, if you taught your children not to use drugs, then they wouldn't use drugs. And I think, geez, I never,
It's a novel idea.
that didn't occur to me, right? And so that unintentionally or intentionally or whatever you want to, that's within you. Well, yeah, if I would have just taught
Right.
him, or if I just would have maybe, it. So it is that, right? Sometimes we forget that we can do everything right and still get an outcome, because there's mental illness, there's a million factors that can play into these things,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And I think that they're not born, children are not born a blank slate. I think that they come out with a personality and experiences that
Without a shadow.
I've often thought Alex chose us to be his parents for a reason
Yeah.
before he was here, right? So I
Yes.
look at that and I think there's a lesson in this for us.
Mhm.
There's a lesson in this for his siblings.
Yeah.
And he's living a life that he needs to experience right now.
Right.
My hope is that this is not his forever life.
Right.
Um,
I hope so too.
Every year that passes, it always makes me like, how much longer can this possibly go on? But I think it's a difficult. It is difficult, and like I said, I think that there's no. I want to backtrack. I don't feel like our community was in any way not supportive. It's really a more of a self shame that we're, like you said, I'm
Yes.
putting on myself. That we shouldn't own,
Right.
and we need to talk to ourselves better, right? A little bit more encouraging that it's not all
man.
our fault every
Yes.
time something bad happens.
No, absolutely. I think that it is self-induced shame. I think it is community misinformation.
Yes.
In particularly, if you've never had an addict relationship,
Yes.
right? You cannot comprehend
Yeah.
the complexity
Right.
of what that takes to navigate. Right?
It is so true. Yeah.
Right.
My daughter said the same thing, as far as, she would have her, friends just say, well, why don't you just, like you said, tell them not to do drugs? It's a
Right.
bad thing. She's like, you have no idea what first of all, the manipulation that happens
Right.
with an addict. And
Right.
then just navigating that is not like it's not just you have children that you just raise them and they do their thing and it's great. It's wonderful. We've got three, they're doing them, four, but three that are just functioning,
Yep.
which is wonderful. And I want to make sure that they're heard as well, that it's
Yes.
like my story isn't always just about what's happening with Alex.
Right.
Do you struggle with that as well a little bit?
Yeah. Um, it's especially complicated by the fact that he passed away.
Yes.
Because everybody grieves differently.
Yeah.
Too, where you may have one child who wants to talk about it all the time.
Mm.
And my son, Liam, who is 11, he tells me, I wish you never would have told me that happened.
Oh,
And I'm like, well, honey, I had to tell you.
right.
But he would prefer really to just not talk to you about that.
Mm.
Because he feels things so deeply.
Yeah.
Just like Tristan,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other one who she just wants to chat about it all the time. Just let's chat about it, right? So that's hard,
Right. Yeah.
right? My husband, he would prefer probably not to talk about it so often.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, can we pull out the baby pictures? Because tonight I just want to sob my face off, right? So
Yes.
it's hard.
It is very hard. Yeah. Navigating it within yourself, but also as a family.
Right.
And
as a mom,
yes.
guiding these people through the thing you don't even know how to guide
Yeah.
yourself through, you guiding your children through addiction. And
Yeah.
it's so hard.
Yeah. It is. So the business gave you a sense of, like you said, I love that you're mentioning that, first of all, that everybody grieves differently. And there's something, I think, very therapeutic in recognizing this is the way I grieve. I
Yes.
need to pour myself into work and start enjoying other people's laughter and then
Yes.
being, kind of owning that a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Some people don't want to be around happiness because some people feel angry
Yeah.
that other people can be happy. And I wanted to just sniff other people's happiness, right? If I could just stand near your happiness,
Yes.
maybe I will feel your happiness. And that is the gift that Nest is for me. Like I wrote in the bio, standing at the back of the room on days when I can't find a reason
Yeah.
to feel happy, or feeling like I can't express that. Grief and gratitude and happiness can live side by side. They are not opposites
Right.
of one another. But some days when you just can't get over there,
Yeah.
standing there and hearing other people giggling over some inappropriate card or tea towel is the greatest gift to me that I can absorb. They're just a tiny bit of their joy.
You really touched me so much when I was just reading about you. I love, first of all, that you talked about just being authentic, which is something I'm so passionate about. I feel like in a world that is polished all the time, or we try to present ourselves as polished all the time, the just saying, look, this is me, this is how I'm dealing with what I need to deal with. And I love the walking the line between appropriate and did she just say that?
Yes. Yes.
That is something that I think we need more of, and just having real conversations and real struggles that we can share as a community and together.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a really good friend, Paula, and she says that my superpower is that I'm a hot mess. But I show people that I'm a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
I embrace the fact that I am who I am.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm accountable for how I, do things, but I don't hold shame in the fact it is my beautiful chaos. It's it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sometimes the gift in that is that people have shared with me that I make them feel comfortable
Yeah.
in who they are, right? Or the fact that, they too are struggling with something, or they have something, or
Yeah.
so if that is what my hot messness does for someone, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. So what do you feel keeps you going on a day-to-day in the ups and downs that is business and family life?
You know, I have a saying, BTD and ATD, right? So before Tristan died, after Tristan died. BTD, I, I was more fearful of everything. I feared consequence of this. I feared that. I feared this. And as maybe callous or crass as some things sound, now I feel like I have walked into the depths of hell and I have stared the worst in the face. And if at the end of the day it doesn't result in a dead child, it's not super fearful for me. So if,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Dawn.
And now that doesn't mean that things are not hard,
Right.
but it's a different, I come from a different place
Yeah.
now.
It's the perspective that maybe this is not as, it might be serious, but you don't know the seriousness that I've had to deal with.
Seriousness, absolutely. As sometimes I'm sitting down thinking, am I going to make payroll this month? Or am I going to have to I don't know, do something? It's a problem.
Right. Yes.
But it is not. And that's a gift that I think, well,
Yes.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's a solvable
Yes.
problem.
That is, it's really, that's very great.
Right?
I'm at a loss for words on that. That's so
I
inspiring.
wouldn't want anybody to learn that lesson
I
that
agree.
way. I would
Yes.
actually pray that anybody in the whole wide world would never.
But it gives you a
learn that.
different perspective.
It does.
That gives you the strength that you need to
It does.
face things with a different
does.
perspective
Yes.
that not everybody has, of course, but
Right.
I think more experience than we talk about,
Right, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your vision is this year for the Nest and personal. What is your vision and your goals? What do you have planned?
My goal is to survive, like every other entrepreneur.
Right.
No, I would really like to continue to be a space where people can feel. We carry lots of on the edge products and inclusivity products.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I have had so many people from other walks of life come in and say, oh, wow, we carry pride items. Not that that is the huge focus of our store, but we have all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And they say, wow, we feel welcome here. Or this is the only place in Douglas County that I've seen this. And I'm sure that there's other places. But to hear that gives me, I love you right where you are. I see you. And all of those other things are just background things.
Yeah.
I see you as a human, as a person, and I love you. Like, I love you as a human.
Yeah.
And I want to continue to be a space for that while upholding my own morals and values.
Right.
We are believers. We have relationship with Jesus Christ, but I'm probably an unconventional Christian because I focus on the relationship, not the religion piece, the rules. And that's for me and Jesus to handle. I get it. But to be a space where people can feel grace, love, acceptance.
I love that. Again, I was reading that when you made that statement on your website about just loving you where you are, and if you are not okay with that, we might not be the place for you.
Absolutely.
And I love that it's accepting people right where they are.
Right.
And truthfully, Dawn, I've been around for quite some time, many years, and I think there's too many people who claim to be believers and yet are the worst critics, judging, and not to get too down that road, but that is a hard place to be. And so when
Yeah.
you're saying, "Look, I have my own beliefs, and
Mm-hmm.
that is okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
between me and God, and
Yeah.
that's my space. But I'm going to love you right where you are without any judgment of that." And really, then it's saying, "Look, I'm going to trust you and the Creator to work out what you need to work out. I don't have to be in that space of judgment."
Right.
And that's very freeing.
Jesus tells me I have one job,
Mm,
and that is to love people.
mm,
I am not to fix anybody.
mm-hmm,
I am to love
mm,
people,
mm-hmm,
people who think differently than me,
mm-hmm.
because I will make so much more headway than with love
Yes.
than I ever will bashing you
Right.
with my belief, right?
Yeah.
And I have joked with so many people that I have had conversations with non-believers about the grace
Mm-hmm.
that I experience in my relationship with
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ while holding a 2-foot crocheted penis in my hand. Okay? Now,
That could be sold at the Nest
100%.
or bought at the Nest.
And they are so comfortable in that
Mm.
conversation because
Yes.
it's pretty hard to feel like I'm judging them
Yeah.
while being authentically who I am.
Yeah.
Because I need, like, if I were perfect, I would be Jesus. And I'm not. Like, I am who I am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Jesus loves me.
I love that. And knowing that you are loved right where you are,
Yep.
and now you're saying, I am going to love others right where
Right
they
where
are.
they are. Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Right. So if that's my ministry,
Mm-hmm.
to talk to families, to addicts, to anybody,
Mm-hmm.
and just give them, if it's one moment of love today,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance that you feel like you are okay for 1 minute in a conversation with me, then I have done my job and I have given honor to Tristan for loving them right where they are.
You have been incredibly inspiring.
Well, thank you.
I really have enjoyed my conversation with you today, and I really hope that this resonates with people because I think that they need to hear. I think we need to talk
Yeah.
more, and others need to hear. And I just so appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me a space to say his name so many times. So,
Anytime.
and if anybody needs love or just wants to feel connected, I hope they come to the Nest because we give out lots of hugs and
Wonderful gifts. Yeah, you have an amazing store.
thank you.
Yes, I hope everybody goes in and says hi. And
Come and see our crocheted items.
thank you so much, Dawn.
You're welcome.